Not sure what episode this is, but welcome back to the Higher Life Podcast. Today it's me and James, and today we plan on talking about mistakes of entry-level candidates and applicants and how to ace, I guess, how to get past them or how to ace interviews at the entry level.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is a really good topic of especially anyone who is just graduating or who just came to the country and is looking to just get their foot in the door when it comes to, corporate world and an office job. The positions that we look for in entry level and, what mistakes that we typically see from time to time and, what makes people stand out in these type of interviews, because it is a bit different from your typical mid-career level positions and also your senior level positions. So we'll kind of go over some of those common mistakes that people get into, and then hopefully people can learn from our experience and be successful in the next interview.
Let's start things off with the resume, James. Like starting off with the resume, obviously we all know that does have a big factor in whether you get an interview or not. If you don't know anyone, what's the biggest common mistake you see on a resume?
Yeah, what I commonly see is that people tend to put too much on the resume, especially for entry-level positions, because they can sometimes confuse the recruiter or the hiring manager looking at the resume. And so they could have so many different types of experience, but if they're not relevant and it's just taking up space because you're scared that, oh, my resume is so short, like I need to fill this up with, this random experience here or there, and it has nothing to do with the job I'm applying for it. I find that's probably like one of the bigger mistakes I usually typically see.
Yeah, I would say less is more these days. And I think there's a stigma about like page length in resumes, and I would say it doesn't really matter too much.
I think relevancy. I think that's like the bigger thing to target, is like quality over quantity at the end of the day.
Yes. I mean, one thing that I see a lot in resumes is people writing points for the sake of writing a point. I did this, I did this, I did that. But they don't really say, I did this for XYZ reason that led to XYZ result.
Right.
That is a common thing. And I think at that point, you're just wasting space. And as a recruiter, from a recruiter's perspective, it shows the candidate it shows to them that the candidate may not know what they actually did or why they even did things. They were just doing things for the sake of doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just listing out a list of tasks, but what impact did that have? And, what made it for you like become a successful employee by doing that. So no, I agree with you. What do you think about education when it comes to entry-level positions?
I think this depends on the role. I know I like saying depends a lot on the role and stuff, but it really does, because some roles, for example, entry-level positions, it may not matter. So for example, finance roles, or I think we went through this topic maybe in one of the previous podcasts, we were talking about like technical skills roles that need some sort of previous knowledge or specialization. Those education does matter. For example, like an entry-level finance role. Typically speaking, a lot of business students would apply for that, or like someone that has a bit of like business experience or office administration experience would apply for those. But for example, in sales, education does not matter. That's an example.
Yeah.
But I would say, actually, to give it a percentage, I would say 50% of the time.
Okay.
50% of the time it matters. Otherwise, it really does depend on the hiring manager and the company's reputation. As you see with Google, I think Google, they took it away, right?
They dropped
the
those
educational
requirements. I know Elon Musk also does the same thing, where he drops the education requirements and prefers people who are self-taught and has accomplishments. I have seen for some particular positions that they do require an undergraduate degree, but not even particularly related to the job in itself. So for example, I've seen some contact center and customer service roles where they require you to have an undergraduate degree, but it doesn't even matter what the degree is in. And so what do you think, like, why do you think that hiring managers have that preference in the first place?
I think it's just I remember back then when we were hiring in the recruitment agency, it just shows that you were able to commit to something for X amount of years. It's that kind of a skill. Otherwise, in terms of learning, I remember, I mean, even from our own experience, what you learn in university or post-secondary or high school, I'm not gonna lie, half of it goes out the window the second you start a job.
No, it's true.
Because everything is, for the most part, teachable, learnable. But I think it's a stigma too, right? Like,
it's a huge stigma, and I don't even know any of the studies on it or any of the proven, metrics that, because you have an undergraduate degree, it makes you more committed to your job, or it makes you more, better performance, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's slowly going away. And that's definitely a more traditional way of how they did interviews back in the day. It was always, you need an undergraduate degree no matter what. But it's growing, like with the digital age and self-education, like YouTube, for example. People are learning much more online through various different sources outside of your traditional school nowadays.
No, 100%. I think that's, I mean, we've seen resumes 20 years after an entry level position, and it becomes almost redundant. To be frank, education, I would say in the beginning stages, it could help. It doesn't not help.
Yeah.
Right. That's one thing I would say. So overall, I'd say you can gain more than you can lose. Not having it, you don't lose or gain too much, but it does help you if you have education.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one thing.
I do have a question for you, Steve. So the thing about entry-level positions is that there's low barriers of entry. That's
Correct.
why it's called entry-level. And with that, there are a lot of applicants. There are a lot of people applying for these jobs. So how does one differentiate themselves amongst the thousands of applicants that would apply for the same job?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like there's a lot of applicants. That is definitely a truth, not a myth. Like when people say that you're up against hundreds, if not thousands sometimes, there are a lot of applicants on all different walks of life. The ones that really, like as a recruiter, when you're looking at the resume, the first thing I usually do is see if they actually cared in their application. And what I mean by that is actually if for example, a lot of people write, objective is to get a marketing role and they apply for a sales role, or their objective is to apply for this business analyst role, but they're applying for a sales role. I think that's one of the easiest ways of getting rejected is like, you can just tell their interest levels all over the place. They're just blind applying.
The effort in each application.
Yeah. I mean, one thing as a recruiter, we notice, I'm speaking for myself, but like we notice people that catered their resume, but more importantly than that, their screening. Some postings will have screening questions.
Yes.
Do not sleep on those screening questions. That's a
100%.
big mistake. I've seen people write, just copy and paste from the resume, and that really shows lack of effort. And that's a big turnoff, to be honest. That already gives me an idea that you're just going to copy and paste something, and you're not unique in your own self. And to be frank, there are times where sometimes those questions are treated like a cover letter where you read the answers and you're like, oh, wow, this person actually is quite interesting. And the reason why they might be interested is more interesting than what their resume says. And I've given people a lot of chances, actually, especially at the entry level, because at the entry level, you're screening for more aptitude, soft skills, in my opinion. And I give people chances because you never know. There's no right or wrong recipe in the beginning in entry level positions, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I agree. I see a lot of transferable skills from different industries. One example is that for, let's say, a contact center where people are on the phones all the time, they do see a lot of people coming from hospitality. Waiters, waitresses, servers, people who are in that industry that work at restaurants could transfer those customer service skills in that type of phone environment as well. So they do really come from all walks of life. And so there's a lot more leeway when it comes to recruiters evaluating these resumes. And so, I think that's a great point.
I got to ask you on that topic, how important is experience then? Relevant experience or having certain experiences to get into like an entry level role?
Yeah, so here's what I'll say about that. I definitely would prefer someone that has various different types of experiences that are transferable versus someone that hasn't worked a day in life and has only gone to school. So I think the actual life experience you get from a job that does have things that are transferable is way better than someone that just got a college diploma or a university degree and they haven't done any part-time work or any co-ops or any internships or anything like that. I prefer real work experience over education, in my opinion.
I agree with you on that too.
Yeah.
In terms of communication, it's when you receive communication from entry level candidates, is there anything that you've noticed that are no's or must do's in terms of email communication between at the recruiter level and the candidate?
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from, but I do see a lot of candidates who apply for entry level positions that have a lot of informal communications, whether
Yes.
it's slang or they're just speaking very informally and not properly addressing whoever they're addressing and signing off the email. It's really interesting, I guess, that nobody's been taught the basic, I would say, like etiquette when it comes to like candidates applying to jobs, and it really shows. If someone's emailing me and saying, "Yo, James,
Hey brother,
hey bro, just applied. Did I get the job?" Versus, "Hey James, really appreciate you taking the time and explaining the position to me and getting to know the organization. I'm very excited. I feel that my transferable skills in X, Y, and Z could really help make an impact in the organization." There's a huge difference between those two, even at the entry level positions. So I wouldn't like sleep on that either, I would say.
yeah, I think keep it formal. To be safe, keep it formal. You're not best friends with this person. They're not your friend technically, unless they are your friend. But even then, you never know where that email is going to go. That email might get sent to the hiring manager, and then they're like, you know what? I don't want this person to represent the company in that manner if they get the job, because it makes sense, right? Like it's the company's brand on the line if you communicate that way to external stakeholders or even internal stakeholders. It's the manager's reputation because they hired the individual. So
Yeah, I agree.
keep it formal, I guess.
Here's a question for you, Steve. You mentioned earlier that soft skills are going to be like one of the most important things for entry-level positions. What would you say the number one soft skill would be for any entry-level position?
Communications.
Communication.
I think communication, both, but here's the piece.
Interesting.
Both.
I disagree.
Do you disagree with
I
that?
do disagree, but
Okay.
you go on.
For entry level
explain the
communication, I think it's two folds to it. Breaking it down, communication at the top. There's listening and speaking, because I think communications is pretty important for you to explain to whoever's on the other line what you're capable of doing, how you would interact with other individuals, how you receive or process information verbally, because that goes with coachability, in my opinion. Coachability is a very important skill to me. Like,
that's mine. That's going to be mine.
Yeah?
It goes along with coachability, but like it goes on a higher level of curiosity. I think that's going to be my biggest soft skill.
So curiosity?
Curiosity.
No,
so like
I disagree. I disagree with curiosity.
It goes with coachability. It's like the people who ask questions, who really are willing to learn about new things and new topics, and who are just really like proactive about it.
Yes and no. I'm going to disagree with you on that. And here's a debate, because on the topic of asking questions and curiosity, at the end of an interview, I always ask, do you have any questions? And I could tell when some people are asking questions for the sake of asking questions to showcase curiosity,
right?
But it doesn't come off as genuine and authentic.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about fake curiosity. I'm talking about the people who are authentically and like super interested and passionate and asking the right questions, and who has that kind of like hunger to learn.
Yes, I agree with the hunger.
Because hunger to learn is where curiosity comes from, right? wanting to learn about the positions, wanting to learn everything, wanting to learn from the hiring manager.
You know what? Here's the thing. It goes back to, that's a good point that you said, hunger to learn and stuff. Actions speak louder than words, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But when you can't show someone what you've done, you got to speak, you got to sell verbally, or you got to choose your words carefully to explain that. And that's why I think at the entry level, to even get past the first round on the job, 100% agree.
On the job.
This
is what I was referring to.
This is at the interview stage,
Okay.
though. This is at the interview stage. What's more important? I think it's communication over like experience, over any of those skills. I think communication, you have to be able to communicate. And if you're not good at it, you have to practice. You have to practice and know things inside out. Because if you can't communicate that you're curious, how will someone know you're curious?
That's true.
That's my opinion.
So I actually came across or had a discussion with somebody about interviews in general. So not about like entry level interviews or mid level or seniors. Like they were referring to interviews in general, and the topic was about like, is the interview in itself, is it the right way to assess someone's skills? And somebody, interestingly enough, said it's not. And they said that an interview, all it is assessing someone's ability to interview. That's all it does. And to your point about communication skills, is like you said, it's all about being able to communicate yourself and your skills and your curiosity. It's communicating what you could do, but some people aren't able to communicate that way. But that doesn't mean that they can't do the job.
Oh, 100%. So I think there are a lot of people, a lot of applicants that can do, objectively speaking, yes or no. Can they do the job? Yes. Majority of people, yes. For any, this is any entry level position, not just specific ones where you need analytical or communication, like customer service skills. Like it's most of the time, everyone and anyone most likely can do a job.
Yes.
So,
but it's interesting, because you were referring to, I think, sales before. It's like one of the biggest things for sales, especially the entry level interviews, is to be able to sell themselves and sell the interviews. But again, it doesn't mean that they're good salespeople.
I agree.
And so it's a very interesting, like more high level topic. Is like, is the interview the right way to go about assessing skills? Like, wouldn't you rather have them do like a sales pitch, maybe like mock calls or a sales pitch or something like that?
So at the evaluation stage at an entry level, you know what? I'm against those, actually, depending on the role. I'm actually against that. For sales, for example, I'm pretty against. I'm not fully on board for entry level sales assessments, such as doing a mock call or mock this or mock that, because you know why? They can research in advance. I am pro for talent act people or interviewers throwing curveballs, because that's when you actually get a taste of how fast they can actually move and how fast they process, because that's more real life than here is a scenario, get back to me in 2 days on your response, prep objections and prep this, prep that.
But isn't that more realistic when it comes to the actual job itself? Don't they always get time to prep for the sales call?
They do, but what you don't, sometimes people that prep I believe there's such thing as over prepping. And when they over prep, it becomes a little messy. And on the job itself, that means they're always relying on over prepping. And that's also something that's a little challenging. That's why I look for just communication skills in general. If they're good enough, and keep in mind, my bar for communication skills isn't to the moon. Keep that in mind. It's not, they have to be Obama level communication. No, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for, can this person just communicate their thoughts? Like that's all I'm looking for, is clarity in the way, if this person is thinking about something and I can tell that they have a response. Keep in mind, as an interviewer, I'm going to try to help too. I'm going to be like, okay, so you did this. Great. What about, tell me the result. Like what was the actual outcome?
So here's like a really easy example of what I'm kind of talking about when it comes to assessing people's skills in like work assessments. When it comes to software developers, even at entry level, they do coding assessments, and it tests the ability to code and whether the code is good or not, whether it's right or not. Wouldn't that be a better indicator of the ability to do the job versus how they communicate in the interview?
Yes, but I think the assessment is how that world is viewed as to communicate. You know what I mean? Like, for example, it's like asking someone to explain math verbally. Mm-hmm. It's either to show them math on a piece of paper.
Well, that's what I mean. Showing is
showing, but that's a part
showing versus telling.
This is the part about like other jobs. It's hard to show someone's gonna be successful in sales or marketing. Like, it's hard to show that, so you got to go on the soft skills.
But even for marketing, they do case studies for interviews.
Entry?
Even entry level, they do case studies. Like, hey, here's a product. Give us a slogan idea or a marketing pitch.
I mean, from my experience, I haven't seen correlation. That's the tough part. So I haven't seen enough correlation to say 100% do a mock call.
Yeah.
And if they pass it, they're good. I haven't seen that correlation. I think to my normal answer, it depends. Depends on a lot of roles. It really does depend.
Well, I think there's going to be
there's
more of it in the future, more assessments and more results and more studies that are going to be done about like, oh, what is a better predictor of success? Whether it's going to be assessments, communications, the interview process, this and that.
If anything for assessments, I'm not even looking for communication skills at that point. I'm just looking for if this person's actually going to do it.
So you're talking about motivation then?
Motivation and actual genuine interest and commitment to the process. I think
I agree with you that the interview process does give you those evaluations, but sometimes recruiters and hiring managers make the mistake of blurring the lines of their communication skills and their motivation doesn't always necessarily translate to their ability to actually do the job.
Fair.
Because someone can be super motivated.
Fair.
And let's say they're super motivated to code and like really excited about it and really wants to do it, but
they don't want to put in the work.
Well, no, they just like, they just don't know how to code or can't code. And like at the end of the day.
Well, in those cases, you're measuring effort, right? Effort. I believe effort, if effort comes through somehow, some shape or form, that I think is a very good skill. I mean, passing it back to you, what do you think are some skills that you think can help or that you see candidates are lacking
from a soft skills perspective or hard
skills in general? Skills in general, just skills in general.
I think effort is a good one. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to even hard skills and like everything else, it all requires practice, and practice requires effort and maybe like diligence and consistency. And so you're gonna have need those skills in order to get good at your job. And especially when it comes to entry level jobs, the more effort is required than if you've been doing it for years and years and years, type of thing. So I would see people who have an overabundance of like effort and practice versus obviously someone that doesn't do any of that type of things. And so here's how I would view that in, let's say, a resume or even an interview is if they do a lot of extracurriculars and if they are a part of a lot of different networks and communities, and if they do a lot of courses that are self-taught, those are all indicators to me about the level of effort they're putting towards gaining that skill set.
Goes back to written communications.
No,
because if they forget to write that, you'll never know.
Because but I'm saying, but at the end of the day, that's showing the effort.
That's a mistake by people. They don't list things out like that sometimes.
That's true.
And
that's true.
I think
that's a mistake for sure.
I think that helps you because you never know. You can also get there could be common interests too.
Yeah.
That the interviewer would be like, oh, I did something.
Oh, yeah, you took that course, you did this, and it's like, oh, like that's amazing. Like I really learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely a mistake. Is like people not undervaluing their volunteer experience, their extracurriculars, or even sometimes their side projects. If they have side projects, that's always
something that they did for fun. It's like, oh yeah, I created this mobile app for fun on the side, and then it turns out like that's something super relevant out of a project that the company's working on. At
the entry level, it matters. It definitely matters.
It does matter.
So going back, I was thinking about the communication thing, and I was like, you know what? That's probably not the number one. You know what it is?
Yeah.
You know what it is?
What is it?
Attitude.
Attitude.
I think attitude.
Okay.
Attitude is everything. If I'm going to bet on anything, I realize I think I'm going to bet on attitude. Attitude.
I think definitely from a soft skills perspective, I think attitude.
From an entry level perspective, attitude is almost anything.
And what sort of attitude are you looking for in entry level candidates?
Just someone that's smart, hungry, and humble, to sum it up in 3 words.
Smart, hungry, and humble.
Smart enough to pick things up, or someone that has the soft skills to be a problem solver. That kind of, you have to have that
problem solver mindset,
attitude mindset.
Yeah.
Someone that's not going to be too arrogant. Actually, I think that's one. That's a big mistake sometimes. I think in the entry level roles is someone gets too arrogant and too confident in this, thinking that they're too good for this role, even though they want the role. They think they come off as just
right.
I know what I'm doing. You should hire me because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then I guess to your point about the attitude and mindset, I think people who have a growth mindset are definitely the ones that are going to do way better than ones that have a fixed mindset, where they're just always constantly wanting to learn and wanting to improve and wanting to do more type of thing.
Because the amount of times I've heard you can't fix a bad attitude in the work environment, it is.
That's true. That's true.
That's what I think about over communications and everything. It's really the attitude. I think that I'm at an entry level that plays
and that goes to the whole coachability thing that you were talking about before as well, right? And I think a lot of times with entry level positions for hiring managers, they want someone that they could teach and mold. Essentially, they want someone that they can mold versus somebody that is set in their ways and stuck and think their way is the best way, even though they're at an entry level position. You don't know anything. You should just be a sponge essentially and just learn from others with the experience and gain that experience yourself and then, like I said, do as much practice and effort until you get to a point where you can do it pretty competently yourself.
I know we're like getting close to time. I'd say that was a very, very detailed discussion, but is there anything else at the interview or post interview stages that entry level candidates make mistakes on, or any tips on how to ace that part post interview? I think the post interview, like for entry level positions, I think goes a long way. I think we chatted about that, but yes, I agree that is a differentiator, actually. Surprisingly, I think if I was to give a percentage, less than 5% send me a thank you.
Yeah.
After my first meeting with them.
I don't care too much for mid-level or senior level positions to send thank you letters, but I think for entry levels, it shows that their level of interest and care of wanting the position, which goes back to the whole attitude thing, right?
So if, hypothetically speaking, you had the chance to travel back in time to when you first started applying for roles or looking to get started in your career, what's a tip that you wish someone told you as an entry level applicant?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of things that would tell my younger self.
But what's the top 2 things maybe that you wish someone, this could have been a game changer for you if you had known something, this could have been a huge game changer.
You know what? I think that I did a lot of extracurriculars or things on the side that I probably undervalued a lot and didn't showcase or didn't think it was relevant at the time. I think that's going to be that would be one thing that I would tell my younger self. And the other one would be to try to apply more. I think I limited myself to
the big companies or something, or?
Well, sometimes just the first company that would interview me type of thing. So I was very naive and didn't really give myself enough credit that you have a lot of skills and you can do a lot of different positions, so you don't have to nail yourself into a box. Like I was saying before, transferable skills in different industries, like the hospitality to contact center, and there's a lot of examples that you can use where industry to industry transferable skills happen all the time. And it's not something that I realized at the time, where I was just boxing myself into a particular box. It's these are the only positions that I could apply for because of the school that I went to. And And then because of the lack of experience that I had, I didn't have much choice. So I would tell my younger selves like, hey, you have this education, but you also have done all these other jobs in the past that could be really transferable to different industries that could open yourself up a little bit more. So I think that's something that I would tell my younger self. What about yourself?
That's a good one. I never thought about it. But after hearing what you said, I would say similar to kind of your second thing, to be honest, it's believe in yourself and don't undervalue yourself. It's so easy to see where your peers are at, if they have more experience, if they're an iBanker, if they're an engineer, and you may not have as much experience, and you thinking that they have more, so they're going to have a one leg up on you. I think that was a big mistake too on my end. It's like I couldn't get into these companies because XYZ individuals they just had more experience, and I think I'm always losing the race. And sometimes it's not about experience, as we said. It's not always about, what you see on the resume. It's not about education always. It's just, having that confidence to apply and confidently just even take that step to applying.
It's true. You don't have to compare yourself to others all the time.
Because I think that is so easy to do so in university or when you're fresh and trying, like the amount of times I've heard in an interview, it's like, oh, I've been told this and that, so I didn't apply, or I'm not interested, even though it's an entry level role.
All the time.
And I think that it's you against you. You're the only reason why, you might not have gotten a chance is because you didn't even apply first. And I wish I did that. I wish I didn't have that invisible glass ceiling over my head.
That's true. And even pushing the envelope when it comes to the job descriptions you see, some of them will be like, oh, you need 2+ years experience in this particular skill set. And to be honest, sometimes you don't even need that. Even though it says it in the job description, doesn't necessarily mean that the recruiter or the hiring manager won't interview you. So don't limit yourself even towards the job description.
100%. I think we got to create another episode on like how to apply for jobs and which ones to pick from. I think that might be an interesting topic.
That could be.
But that brings us up to the end of this podcast. If you like what you heard, please leave us a like, subscribe, comment below, and send us an email if you guys have any interesting topics. And thanks for listening in on the Hard Life Podcast today.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Till next time.